10 mind tricks the FBI has used while interviewing serial killers. Hi there, Fact Buff. Welcome to yet another segment of The Insiders. Today, we're going to talk about how the Federal Bureau of Investigation used unconventional mind tricks, deconstructing the psychology of the serial killer they had to interview to either make them confess or give up the location of their victims. Before continuing with this video, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we upload a video. 1. Never going in blind. When dealing with some of the most violent and complex personalities on the planet, the key to getting the most out of an interview is extensive preparation. Before interviewing the serial killer, every case file must be researched fully and the individual's crimes studied intensively. There are no two serial killers who are the exact same, despite how similar some of their crimes might appear to be. In The Killer Across the Table by John E. Douglas and Mark Olshaker, the retired special agent explains, "The offenders we've examined were all killers, yet they were all different. Every killer and predator represented many layers of subtle distinctions. There are a number of reasons why a serial killer would agree to talk to a special agent. Some of them enjoy participating in a psychological study of their own minds. Some are law enforcement buffs and enjoy being around the police. Some assume that in cooperation with the agents, they might receive special treatment. Some wish for a welcome break from the mundane prison life. And for others, they simply enjoy recounting their murderous fantasies in gruesome details." 2. Playing to their ego. One of the quickest ways to get a serial killer to open up about their horrific crimes is to play to their ego. Many of these criminals have a very deficient superego, which means they suffer a little anxiety. They are violently aggressive and often sadistic in their criminal behavior. They will also most likely have a low resting heartbeat, which allows them to commit such unimaginable crimes and then sit down with their partner for their dinner the following evening as if nothing happened. So, how can you persuade a criminal who is highly functional in high-pressure situations to finally drop their guard? Play to their ego, of course. Robin Dreeke is in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's elite counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. He recommends not disagreeing with any opinion and, to make it all about them, Dreeke further explains, validate every opinion non-judgmentally. If you don't happen to agree, simply ask, "That's a fascinating, insightful, or a thoughtful opinion. Would you mind helping me understand how you came up with it?" Again, their brain will reward them on multiple levels for this. 3. Put yourself in the position of the hunter. Criminal profiling is like working on a complex puzzle in an attempt to understand the crime and the person who committed it. If you want to solve this puzzle efficiently, it is recommended by the experts that you place yourself in the mindset of the hunter. If you're uncomfortable with visualizing yourself as a serial killer, then imagine yourself as a lion on the Serengeti plain. There is a herd of antelope, and you're looking for subtle signs of weakness, training your eye on those vulnerabilities to determine which of the herd will become your next victim. This is the same way many serial killers hunt their potential prey. It's in the thrill of the hunt itself that motivates them. In Mindhunter, inside the FBI Elite Serial Crime Unit by John E. Douglas and Mark Olshaker, Douglas writes, "I have to put myself in the position of the attacker, to think as he thinks, to plan along with him, to understand, feel his gratification in this one moment out of his life, in which his pent-up fantasies come true and he is finally in control. Completely able to manipulate and dominate another human being. I have to walk in that killer's shoes too." 4. Never writing anything down. One of the most difficult obstacles conducting an interview with serial killers can bring is these conversations can last anywhere from 2 to 6 hours and you are unable to write anything down. There's also a 57-page document that needs to be completed after the conversation is over, so the criminal profile can later be constructed. So, a great memory is certainly required for this job. Douglas learned early in the interviews that recording subjects will keep them in stuck defensive mode. He said, "I won't be playing a tape recorder, so what you see on the television maybe in the show Mindhunter, which is based on me, they're going in with these big tape recorders. We did that initially, and it really turns them off, because you're dealing with a very paranoid individual because of where they are now, who they are. For safety, they don't want to be perceived as a snitch." Adding, "If you're taping it, who's going to be hearing this tape? If you're writing notes, they're thinking, why are you writing these notes?" 5. Sometimes it helps coming down to their sinister level. When talking to serial killers, you might have to lower yourself to their sinister level in order to gain their trust. Richard Speck was a mass murderer who systematically butchered 7 student nurses at the South Chicago Community Hospital in 1966. He miscounted the number of victims, and one of the nurses was able to hide until he left. 2 days following the murders, Speck attempted to cut his own wrists, and while being treated at a hospital, a doctor recognized his "Born to Raise Hell" tattoo, which had been mentioned by the survivor. During Speck's interview with Douglas and Ressler, the killer decided not to cooperate and instead ignore both of the agents. Douglas then changed the tactic and spoke about Speck as if he wasn't in the room. He turned to a counselor and said, "He took 8 pieces of ass away from the rest of us. You think that's fair?" Speck then broke his silence and laughed. "You guys are crazy. It must be a fine line separates you from me." He then opened up to the agents with more information about his crimes. 6. Learning how to cut through the BS. When interviewing serial killers, you don't want the majority of your time wasted on a subject spinning a bunch of lies to feed their own ego, especially as the criminal profile itself needs to be an accurate insight into their own mind and motivations. Despite many of these criminals being interviewed while they are on a death row, they will still attempt to control the situation by embellishing an event they have played over and over again in their own minds. In short, serial killers are often total fantasies. In the summer of 1976, David, son of Sam Berkowitz, shot and killed 6 people in and around New York City. Berkowitz claimed his neighbor's dog named Sam was possessed by a 3,000-year-old demon that forced him to kill. However, during his interview with Douglas, he wasn't buying it. When Berkowitz recounted the possession story, Douglas told him, "Hey, David, knock off the bullshit. The dog had nothing to do with it." Berkowitz laughed and nodded and agreed that the agent was right, which meant they were able to move on to the real motivating factors behind the crime. 7. Never asking them to feel remorse or guilt. The ability that most of us morally well-adjusted human beings have is to feel distressed when we witness the distress or suffering of another person. We should also feel moved enough to do something to alleviate that person's suffering. There is cognitive empathy, which is the ability to know what other people are feeling, and emotional empathy, where you feel what they are feeling. Many serial killers understand that the other person is distressed. They recognize the fear. They just don't feel moved to respond other than with predatory behavior. This allows them to take advantage of the tearful child who has been separated from their parents, or the young girl who is walking home alone. Once they've acted instinctively as a predator, it is near impossible to ask them to feel bad about their crime. Mary Ellen O'Toole and Alyssa Bowman, in their book, Dangerous Instincts, How Gut Instincts Betray Us, write, "Asking a psychopath what remorse or guilt feels like is like asking a man what it feels like to be pregnant. It is an experience they've never had. If you keep asking a psychopath about their feelings, such as, 'How do you feel about those victims?' they will become irritated. They see emotions as problems, not something worth having." 8. Setting your body language as if you're on a date. Body language is 55% of the communication, according to the recent stats. Therefore, in an interview environment, how you hold yourself is extremely important. Many serial killers are made to feel as comfortable as possible for their interview process, which can take many hours. They will often have their cuffs and chains removed before sitting down. Your body language should be set as if you're on a date, facing the individuals. Arms should not be crossed, keep eye contact, have a relaxed voice, and have your feet facing forwards. It is also recommended that words like killing, murder, and rape are also avoided, as this can flip the serial killer back into its defensive mode. Another tip is you should position yourself so you are looking up to the criminal. Douglas recommends, I would be looking up to him slightly throughout the interview. I wanted to give him that one psychological edge of feeling superior to me. 9. Standing guard of your own mind. Serial killers are often highly manipulative individuals who have the ability to read people well enough to know exactly how to get under their skin. Whoever fights monsters, Ressler writes that nearly everyone in his unit fell victim to situational stress, and many special agents quit profiling after a few years because of the horrific nightmares they endured at night. He also recalls how he witnessed one agent fall under the spell of a cold-blooded killer who had passed on Bureau-developed information in order to assist the murderer's appeal against his own death sentence. You may even indicate that you have empathy towards him when you really don't, but you have to do this acting. 10. Never go into an interview alone. Edmund Kemper was labeled by investigators as a natural-born killer, as he stood 6 feet 9 inches tall and weighed more than 300 pounds. He offered Douglas and Ressler many valuable and very frightening insights into the mind of a depraved killer. Ressler spoke with Kemper again, but this time the agent was alone. At the end of the 4-hour interview, Ressler pressed the call button to signal the guard, but nobody came. 15 minutes later, he pressed the call button again, and this time, Kemper picked up on the agent's anxiety. Kemper told him, "If I went apeshit in here, you'd be in a lot of trouble. I could screw your head off and place it on the table to meet the guard." An agonizing 30 minutes passed where Kemper and Ressler both tried to dominate the other in a battle of words. Ressler told the serial killer there would be consequences if he killed an FBI agent, and Kemper scoffed. "What would they do, cut off my TV privileges?" Finally, when the guards opened the door, Kemper told the shaken agent, "You know I was just kidding, don't you?" Ressler made an important note never to conduct an interview on his own again. We hope you learned a lot through this video. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, The Insiders, and we'll see you again next time.